Do you believe a boy who once sold flowers on the street can one day wear a white coat and save lives inside a hospital? This is the story that will make you believe, because once there was a little boy standing on the corner of a busy road with a small basket in his hand filled with strings of Sampaguita, the sweet white flowers. Of the Philippines, his clothes were old, his slippers broken, and his stomach often empty. But his eyes carried a fire. He would stretch his little hand to strangers and say, "Sampaguita, po, 10 pesos, po." Sometimes people bought from him, sometimes they walked away without even looking, but the boy never stopped, because every coin he earned he was saving for a dream bigger than the streets. Bigger than hunger, bigger than poverty. He wanted to be a doctor. The boy's name was Carlo, and his life began in the narrow alleys of a poor neighborhood. His father left when he was young. His mother washed clothes for neighbors and sometimes sold vegetables in the market, but the money was never enough. Carlo saw his mother, his hands rough and tired. He heard her crying at night when she thought no one was listening, and one day when his little sister got sick with fever, they could not even afford medicine. She just lay on the mat, sweating and trembling. And his mother prayed all night. Carlo watched helplessly, and he felt something growing inside his chest. A promise to himself. He whispered one day, "I will be a doctor. I will save lives, and no child will suffer because they have no money." From that day, Carlo began selling Sampaguita after school. He would walk long hours beside the roads, holding the basket. His voice soft yet hopeful, "Sampaguita, po, fresh Sampaguita." Sometimes he walked barefoot under the hot sun. Sometimes he stood under heavy rain, his stomach growling, but his mind repeating one thought: "This is for my dream. This is for my dream." And slowly coins became pesos. Pesos became small savings. He would hide the money in an old box under his bed. Every time he counted, he smiled and whispered, "This is my future." At school, Carlo was always the boy with second-hand books, torn notebooks, and borrowed pens. But inside the classroom, his hand was always raised, his eyes shining with curiosity. Teachers noticed his determination. They said, "Carlo, you are very smart, never stop learning." But some children laughed at him. They said, "How can a Sampaguita boy become a doctor? Look at your shoes, look at your clothes." But Carlo did not answer. He only smiled, because deep inside, he knew something they did not. He knew the size of a dream is not measured by the size of your pocket, but by the strength of your heart. Many nights Carlo studied under the dim light of a candle, because electricity was too expensive. His neighbors sometimes saw him still awake at midnight, his face close to the book, his lips moving as he read quietly. He fought sleep. He fought hunger. He fought doubt. And every time he felt weak, he remembered his sister's face that night. She was sick. He remembered his mother's tears, and he would whisper again, "I will not stop." Years passed. Carlo grew taller. His basket of Sampaguita never left his side. He walked the same streets again and again, but his savings grew slowly, very slowly. Sometimes he wanted to cry, because medicine school cost so much more than his coins. But then something beautiful happened one afternoon. An old man in a car stopped when he saw Carlo selling flowers. He asked the boy, "Why are you not playing like other children?" And Carlo answered with honest eyes, "I want to be a doctor, sir. I am saving money by selling Sampaguita." The old man was surprised. He bought all the flowers and gave him extra money. He said, "Keep going, son. Never give up." Many strangers after that noticed the boy's determination. Some gave him tips, some encouraged him, but still, Carlo knew the journey was long. When he reached high school, the challenges grew bigger. Tuition was higher, projects were expensive. But Carlo worked harder sometimes. After classes, he helped carry bags in the market. Sometimes cleaned tables in a small eatery. But still, every evening, he carried his Sampaguita basket, walking through cars with windows rolled down, calling softly, "Sampaguita po, Sampaguita po." He faced rejection again and again. But his dream was louder than any rejection. One day, a teacher asked the class to write their biggest dream. Students wrote about houses, cars, travels. But when the teacher read Carlo's paper, her eyes filled with tears. He had written simply, "I want to be a doctor, so I can heal poor children for free." The teacher called him after class and said, "Carlo, you are special. Never forget your heart will guide you." Finally, graduation day came. Carlo was among the top students. His mother cried, proud and thankful. but now came the hardest step. College. How could he afford medicine school? The cost was like a mountain. His little savings from Sampaguita was still too small. Carlo almost gave up, but then destiny opened a door. He applied for scholarships again and again. Some rejected him, some ignored him, but one university saw his grades, saw his story, and they gave him a scholarship enough to cover tuition, not everything, but enough to start. Carlo hugged his mother and cried, "This is the beginning, Ma. I will study hard and make you proud." University life was not easy. He was surrounded by students from rich families with gadgets, with cars, while he still sold Sampaguita. In the evenings just outside the campus, some classmates mocked him. They said, "Look, the Sampaguita boy wants to be like us," but others admired him. They said, "Your courage inspires us." Carlo walked with his head high, because he knew every flower sold was a step closer to the hospital of his dream. Days turned to months, exams, 2 sleepless nights. Carlo studied harder than ever. He read until his eyes hurt. He practiced in labs until his hands shook. Sometimes he failed, sometimes he wanted to quit, but each time he remembered the little boy he once was, barefoot under the sun, and he pushed. Again, there were times he had no lunch, only water. But still he attended class. There were nights he had no fare, so he walked home, carrying heavy books, but he smiled through tears. One day during clinical practice, Carlo was assigned to help in the emergency room. A little child was brought in with high fever, trembling and crying. The memory of his sister flashed before him. His hands shook, but he remembered his training. He gave medicine, followed instructions, and slowly the child's breathing calmed the mother of. The child held Carlo's hands and whispered, thank you, young doctor." And Carlo felt a fire in his heart stronger than ever. He knew he was walking the right path. After years of struggle, Carlo finally wore the white coat. His dream had become real. He stood in front of the mirror. The Sampaguita boy was now Dr. Carlo. Tears rolled down his face. He whispered, "For my mother, for my sister, for every child who cannot afford a doctor, I will serve." With all my heart. When he walked into the hospital, people greeted him, Dr. Carlo, and inside he remembered every night of hunger, every step under the sun, every rejection, and he smiled. But Carlo did not forget where he came from. After he became a doctor, he returned to the streets where he once sold Sampaguita. He saw children still selling flowers like he once did. He knelt down, gave them encouragement, and bought all their flowers. He told them, "Never stop dreaming. You are more than what people see today." He even started free medical missions in poor villages. He gave medicine to sick children. He healed mothers. He served fathers. He became a light for many. And one day during a speech in his old school, he stood before students and said, "I was once the boy who sold Sampaguita, and today I am a doctor. If I can do it, you can too. Never give up. Never stop believing in your dream, because the world may try to tell you no, but your heart can always say yes." So when you see a child selling Sampaguita on the street, remember, behind those small flowers, there might be a big dream waiting to bloom. It's like a white flower under the sun, like Carlo, who proved that, even from the humblest beginnings, the greatest healers can rise. This story is a reminder to all who watch that dreams are stronger than poverty, that hard work can break every wall, that faith can light even the darkest road. If this story touched your heart, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can bring more true stories that inspire. Never stop dreaming, never stop believing.